In our last video, the forces of order were dealt their first major pushback in the Realmgate Wars. Archaon was set on binding the mighty god beasts to his will and bringing them into Azir to conquer Sigmar once and for all. Well, he already had one on his side, Argentine, who he first met in the realm of metal. And he got a second, Ignax, a massive fire serpent that when coiled up became a second son from Akshi. However, everything didn't go Archaon's way because the third god beast, Behemoth, was actually killed by the Stormcast Eternals before he could be corrupted by Archaon. Lots of lives were lost, but no real gains were made by the forces of order. Alarielle, Queen of Life, Inguran is still out of the fight for now, Nagash isn't even on the board, and all this stretching out the forces of the Stormcast, spreading all across the realms, trying to build back the Pantheon, with Alarielle and Nagash so far have yielded little to no fruit. So today we're going to conclude the Realmgate Wars series of campaign books by looking at the final book in the series, All Gates. And this book really does jump around realm to realm to realm, so before I jump into the individual areas, I'm going to give you the big idea, the big picture of this book. Archaon's reach for the god beasts went well on the whole. He has 2 on his side, the forces of order have 0 to our knowledge, and there are more god beasts out there that he would like to have. But Order has a better plan, which is the original plan. Don't race for god beasts, hit Archaon where it hurts. To do that, we need to do a little exposition. There exists a place that has a realm gate to every realm. Imagine one centralized location that had a gate to every single realm in the mortal realms. This location is called the All Points. We talked about this a little bit in my coverage of the realm gates themselves, so I'll go ahead and link to that video here, but it's an incredibly strategic and important location. If you own it, you can send forces literally anywhere. These gates are massive, as you can see in the picture here, and so you can literally move entire armies, colonies, continents worth of people through these things with relative ease compared to just traveling on foot. Now, that's the location itself, the All Points. If you're on the other end of one of those gates, we call this gate an All Gate. An All Gate is literally just a realm gate that goes to the All Points. To that end, there's only 8 of them in existence, which makes sense. And so Sigmar's plan is, we're going to lock the All Gates. This way, even though Archaon, who controls the All Points, can get anywhere right now, and all the forces of chaos can go everywhere they want to be and infest everything around them, if you lock the door on the other side, the All Points starts to matter less. And that's exactly what the plan is. Right now, the only one that's locked is the gate to Azir, which is closed by Sigmar when he withdrew back in the Age of Chaos. And by stopping the flow of Chaos reinforcements, Sigmar's plan is to slowly choke out the grip that Chaos has on the mortal realms. Because here's the thing, Archaon has god beasts, and that's good for him, but they don't matter if they can't get to where the fight is. If they can't go realm to realm, that means they'll never make it to Azir, and then they're stuck wherever they are. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, Archaon does have a massive fortification network. He has tons of reserves located at all points. Just in case any of the realms need reinforcements, he sends them off through the gate. It's really an incredibly brilliant system that he has. And so this book, All Gates, is Sigmar's massive campaign to shut all of the All Gates, meaning all the doors that lead to the All Point, simultaneously. And it has to be timed perfectly, and we'll soon see why. So the course of this book is going to go realm to realm, every single one of them except Azir, because that one never opened, obviously. He wouldn't open the gate to Azir in the middle of a Chaos Fortress right there. But we're going to go realm by realm and see what the fate of each All Gate is, and at the end of this, we'll have a good tally and score for how effective the Realmgate Wars were for the forces of order. So starting in Guran, the Realm of Life. We get a little bit of description of what's been going on with Alarielle. Last we saw, she had degenerated back into being a soul pod, was planted in a very special place by the Hallowed Knights. She appeared in some kind of spirit form to the Stormcast who were trying to defeat Behemoth, the god beast from the last book, but she hasn't made a physical appearance. She's been using this time to heal her soul, to take in what's happened to her realm, because she was just hiding in Athelweird for so long, she didn't see the devastation. She's taking it in. She's finding peace about what needs to be done, like resolving to herself what actions need to be taken, and then becoming incredibly mad about the things that Chaos has done and the things that they've taken away from her. As that kind of peace comes through and the rage starts to build up, so too does her consciousness come back. At this point, the ground begins to shake, and she busts out of the earth in a tidal wave of power and energy. And she begins to sing a new song. And this is a reoccurring theme in the Sylvaneth. They don't really speak to each other so much in a language, rather than they just kind of hear a song on the wind, and that's how they generally communicate. Well, her song is a song of warfare and vengeance. Every Sylvaneth throughout the realms, all 8 realms, can hear this song, and they all rise and begin to march to war. She resurrects Lady of the Vines, who was the branch witch that saved her, the imbalance of power, and she calls a big meeting of all the Tree Lord Ancients, just like her war council, if you will. And they don't bicker so much, they're just kind of at a loss of what to do, and Alarielle says, here's the deal, we need to ask help from Sigmar and get on a game plan. And here's the thing, we talked about it in Balance of Power, where they put Alarielle's soul pod was specifically so that she would absorb the kind of heroism and cooperation and all the things that made that location so great. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video. I'll go through a description of the area and the forces and the events that happened there to make it such a powerful location for those kinds of attributes. They wanted her specifically to come back like that, and now we're actually seeing the fruits of that, where she was an isolationist before. Now she's like, okay, first order business, we need Sigmar's help, we need a game plan. Very team player, but also very angry, aggressive, and ready for war. Sigmar answers the call and sends down a chamber of Stormcast Eternals, now reinforced with Dracoths from the Extremist Chamber. And he also sends down the Celestant Prime, the guy wielding Galmarez, and his purpose in this kind of meeting to kind of plan and coordinate, he's just going to stand there and stare at Alarielle because he's looking for any kind of impurity. They don't know if the ground was tainted by chaos. Alarielle looks at him, knows exactly what he's doing, and comments that, like, normally she'd kill him for such, like, seditious thoughts, I guess, but this is not the time for that kind of action. Now is the time where we can't trust anyone, but we have to work together. Celestant Prime explains the plan. We're going to hit every all gate at once, and your job is the Genesis Gate. Now, what is the Genesis Gate? We talked about what the all gates were, of course, but each one of them really takes on the aspects of their realms. The Genesis Gate is obviously the all gate that goes to Guran, Realm of Life, and as such, really takes on the embodiment of it in that it is a living waterfall. There exists in Guran a system of floating islands. We've seen these in a lot of artwork and things like that. But on one of these islands is a continuously running waterfall. The Genesis Gate happens if you walk underneath that waterfall, like through the waters of it. That is the gate itself. There's no ornate archway or anything like that, no pulsing magical light. You just walk through the waterfall and you wind up at the all points. And to find it, they send out a whole bunch of Knight Azeros, the flying Stormcast Eternal Lieutenant guys, to go find out which floating island it's on, because these things kind of drift away. It's been a long time. Alarielle's been hidden in Athelweird, so they really have to take their time to figure out which one it is, at which point they're being harassed and fought by Nurgle forces, but eventually they do figure out which one it's at. And of course, as makes sense, Nurgle has been given the authority by Archaon to build a mighty fortress at the Genesis Gate. The Nurgle fortress is pretty mighty. It has 7 towers to defend it, as is Nurgle's number. The Glotkin are there to defend it, so is a massive Vermin Lord Corruptor. If you want to know more about the Glotkin, we did a video on him, and I'll leave a link to the description for him down below. But he's a deeply fascinating character. Now the Stormcast are there trying to come up with a plan, like how can we breach their defenses, how can we, disarray their troops, that kind of stuff, kind of planning out a really good method of attack, and then Alarielle just goes berserk and just runs for the front door. And here's the thing about Alarielle, as she gets mad, the energies of life explode around her. So as she is running towards this fortress at full speed, a healthy forest, is erupting behind her. Everything she steps on becomes purified from Nurgle's rot. Her rage and her presence is literally fixing everything around her. As she's swinging her weapon and killing stuff, Sylvaneth are literally coming to life around her, just falling off. She'll take a swing at an enemy and a whole bunch of dryads just pop out of nowhere. And she gets into a very lengthy fight with the Glotkin. They trade blows for quite a while. If you're not familiar, the Glotkin are powerful at pretty much everything. Gurk, the big guy they ride, is obviously strong in physical stature, with the brother Ithrak on the back of him shooting powerful dark magics. They're just combined a mighty force to reckon with, and Alarielle goes toe-to-toe with them and eventually defeats them, shoving them off the edge of the waterfall into the abyss. She goes to where the waters are deepest on this little island here, stabs her spear into the ground, and with a rage and let loose of energy, kind of exuding that same life power she's been bringing with her, purifies the river, which then rolls down and purifies the water beneath it. Everything starts from this point, starts healing. With the defenses breached, the Glotkin defeated, the Nurgle forces there in disarray, and everything healing from that central location, the forces of order are able to lock the Genesis Gate, thereby securing Guran from future Nurgle reinforcements en masse from the All Points. We transition now over to the realm of metal. And the All Gate here is called the Mercurial Gate. And the gate here is surrounded by a massive fortification network. It's very complex, and I just love looking at it. It's called the Iron Holds collectively. It's just a bunch of mini fortresses and redoubts, but it requires special mention because of its origins. Back when Sigmar first discovered the All Points, he immediately realized the tactical significance of the location by being able to send troops wherever. This could be terrible if it fell in the hands of the enemy. So what he did was he ordered a fortress to be built at each one of the All Gates exits. For this one, in the realm of metal, he specifically asked the Dwarden god Grugni, master engineer, god of craftsmanship, to design a fortress. And he put some serious work into it. This is a collection of dark, jagged, sharp, foreboding towers. They're built and they're intermingled on gears and cogs, and so this fortress is in perpetual motion, so you can't really plan a siege of it because it's always moving. You can't scale its walls, it'll crush you as it rotates in. Those fortress walls defend a sea of molten silver, which has been filled with monsters of Cheman. And above it, it has flying mines and archery positions that make it impossible to fly over. And our Stormcast friends plan to take the fortress with the aid of the Fire Slayers, specifically the Greyfjord Lodge. And Sigmar's plan is pretty brilliant. He has over 40 Stormcast Eternal Chambers ready to roll for this. But he knew that they were going to fail. They could not breach the gate from the outside. But they were intended to act as a distraction, because there was a much smaller force of Fire Slayers and Celestial Vindicators that was going to go underground through tunneling, which had been done by the Fire Slayers beforehand. They're going to tunnel up through the ground along one of the cliff edges, and then open the gate from the inside, kind of a Trojan horse style attack, if you will. And initially this plan goes perfectly. Everyone's mounted the walls, they're all looking outside. The Celestial Vindicators and the Fire Slayers burrow up into that center little island and begin laying waste to the defenders from the rear. And this goes pretty well until their ground stirs and the river of molten silver begins to kind of flux and bubble and wash around. And Argentine, the silver worm, the one we met in Quest for Galmaraz, Silver Serpent, raises up out of that pool, seeing what's going on, and is livid with it. He stretches up, he reaches his head back, kind of like getting an attack ready. He's going to be unloading a whole bunch of warp flame on these guys. And just as his head is kind of bowed back and ready to strike, Dracothian, who is the god of dragons who we spoke about before, who distracted him last time when they were in the Quest for Galmaraz, zooms in, sees what's happening, scrapes up Argentine, and the two of them go tossing and fighting amongst the sky. Now, this is also happening at the same time as Tzeent's sorcerers and wizards are playing a mind game. They're whispering lies and telling secrets to literally everyone. The Fire Slayers, the Stormcast Eternals, even their own men, to tell them that they can win. So what we have when we talk about this battle in its totality is this kind of insane looking fortress with our heroes being attacked both physically and mentally while under the backdrop of two god beasts fighting in the sky. So this is really, really cool. However, the Stormcast start making some real progress. With Argentine distracted, the Celestial Vindicators and Fire Slayers are able to move in, throw down the tower walls, the Stormcast reinforcements come in, things are going excellent until the Mercurial Gate pulses and glows, and a new combatant enters this battlefield. The gate opens and Archaon leads a flood of Varangard out, and they proceed to destroy the Stormcast Eternals. It is a very cool fight, a lot of great cinematics. There's demons, there's Fire Slayers, Slaves of Darkness, Stormcast Eternals, God Beast fighting above, in a moving castle. Everything's trying to kill our heroes. It is the epic story stuff that we look for in these things. Archaon kills a Stormcast Eternal, Thostos Bladestorm, and as his lightning is shooting up to his ear, Dorgar, his mount, grabs it out of the sky and consumes him for good. Everything is toppled, the plan falls apart immediately, and Archaon controls the Mercurial Gate at the end of the day with the heavy toll dealt to the Stormcast Eternals. Now the next two gates are very quick and simple. These are the Realm Gates to Light and Shadow, Hyash and Olgu. And this literally gets like a one-page shout-out where we know Stormcast Eternals were sent there to close the All Gates there. Few Stormcast returned, and none of them could articulate what had actually happened. This is back before we had any real information about those two realms, light and shadow. So the information we're given is that it's just a place of mind-bending madness, and so anyone who went there really couldn't speak of what had happened. All we know about those two is that we have no champion. We don't know that Chaos has it, and we don't know that the Stormcast Eternals have it. So they're kind of big question marks in this whole battlefront. And that might be sort of a letdown, but remember this is at a time, 2.5, 3 years ago, depending on when you're watching this, when GW wasn't really ready to enter those realms specifically. We are now, of course, the Daughters of Cain, things like that, but at the time we weren't quite ready to broach that subject. But moving along to one of the coolest stories in this book is the battle for the Maw Gate. And this really is one of the most unique of the All Gates that we've seen. This gate is more of a traditional archway, however this archway is lodged inside the throat of a giant worm. This worm is named Fangathrax, and it moves around the realm of Gur, beasts, and it really embodies it. It's just a wild creature, it goes where it wants, it does what it wants, and it cannot be controlled. Well, in the Age of Chaos, the forces of Archaon realized the importance of the All Gate and said, we gotta get this thing under wraps, we gotta lock it down and make it a stable environment for us to transport. So they constructed 6 fortifications that are on the backs of other beasts in the area called crawler forts. These are living batteries, basically, that are meant to be an anchor for Fangathrax. He has 6 of them. They each took a chain and bound themselves to the beast, and on the back of each crawler fort is a little mini fortification. So you have your huge monster worm with the All Gate in its mouth, with 6 crawler forts all around it in every direction. And this whole scenario, this setup can move, which means it is probably one of the more useful All Gates, in the sense that if you need reinforcements across the realm, this thing will slowly but surely start moving that direction, and eventually it'll get there to wherever you need reinforcements. That's pretty great to have. These crawler forts allow you to guide and transport the giant worm. Well, the Stormcast arrive in this area, and they're doing some scouting, trying to get reconnaissance, and they see, obviously, the giant worm and the crawler forts and how hard this is going to be. But they also see a giant gathering of greenskins nearby. And this is where Games Workshop introduces us to the Iron Jaws, and brings destruction into the mix of this entire war. Because they also want the crawler forts gone. They want the All Gate free from everyone. Destruction is about no rules, no subjugation, no stability. So at a certain point, the Stormcast are just watching what the Greenskins are doing, and they have a pretty good plan, actually. Ironjaws run up, challenge all the Khorne-based fortresses in their crawler forts. A bunch of Khorne guys crawl down and start chasing after the Greenskins because they're bored and looking for a fight. Greenskins lead them into a nearby canyon and proceed to slaughter them. At this point, the Stormcast move over to where the Ironjaws are, seeing like, oh, maybe we're on the same side. To which the Ironjaws then respond, smash the shiny ones. And so they start this huge scrum. And this becomes the coolest fight in this book, in my personal opinion. It's not objectively, but it's chaos and order and destruction in this huge 3-way scrum that is just pure insanity. Gordrak shows up and he's leading his huge wall. He's been orchestrating this whole thing. He was going to have the Ironjaws and Greenskins like pull folks from each fortress away and piecemeal, this way they're weak when they go to strike and they can release the beast all at once. But now that the Stormcast are here, he's like, screw it. So we all just run forward full speed. The Greenskins just flood over 2 of the crawler forts just in general. I think there's 2 Slaanesh ones. They just absolutely smash inward. Another 2 were already weakened because they were Khorne ones and most of the people garrisoning them left. So at this point the worm is starting to thrash and the crawler forts aren't holding onto it as well, so it's getting a little wild. Chains are whipping everywhere. And Gordrak moves his way to the middle of the battlefield and lets out a massive waw. When he does so, Fangathrax responds just like anything in Gur does and goes ballistic and wild, just like the Oryx and Greenskins around him. He thrashes hard, snaps the chains, and immediately burrows into the ground. Now remember, while he's burrowing, there's this door in his mouth, and Chaos reinforcements are actually still coming through it. So imagine going through a door to expecting a fight, and all of a sudden you're just digging into the ground. It's a horrifying thought. And from there, now the All Gate is on its way out of the battlefield. No one secured it. The Stormcast, Eternals, and Chaos are just fighting each other in this huge 3-way match with Gordrak. And it's funny because the book actually makes this like point where they're all kind of helping each other and hurting each other at the same time. Like Stormcast and Chaos guys will be fighting, and right when a Stormcast is about to get struck down, an Ardboy will come in and axe the Chaos guy who was trying to kill him. Okay, well now Stormcast guy is safe. And Stormcast guy will stab that Ardboy straight in the face, inadvertently saving the next Chaos guy that was next to him. Okay, now he's helping Chaos. And so like you can see the madness of this battlefield just absolutely erupts, and the Realmgate is well on its way away from this picture. The Stormcast Eternals and Chaos are eventually killed to the man. In the end, no one gets the Realmgate, but everyone respects Gordrak and the forces of destruction, and the unbound fury of nature and its savagery enter the war at this point. Next story is we move over to Shyish, and their Allgate is called the Endgate, which makes sense. It's the realm of death, a time of endings and things like that. So yes, the Endgate. And the Stormcast Eternals, the Anvils of Heldenhammer, are there. And since we last saw our friends, they had made an accord with the emissaries of Nagash that they would have a unified army, Death and Stormcast Eternals. They would go and they would take this Allgate together. Well, the clock's ticking and the forces of death don't show up, so the Anvils of Heldenhammer, knowing that all these things have to happen simultaneously, just go in without these reinforcements. And they are stoic, they fight well, and they are given a warrior's death, but every single one of them is wiped out because there just wasn't enough strength to take the gate. So this one is owned by Chaos. Not really an epic story, there's not a whole lot of information given. Really the point of this bit of information about the Endgate is to show us that Nagash has turned his back on the Pantheon. He's not interested in teaming up, and he's not a man of his word. Which, of course, as we move into Soul Wars, which is the current narrative series, is going to become very relevant. The last of the realm gates to be fought for is in the realm of fire, Akshi, and this is the Brimfire Gate, surrounded by a Khorne fortress called the Keep of Skrathax. And for this mission, Vandus Hammerhand, the leader of the Hammers of Sigmar, is sent back to Akshi to finish what he started in the Brimstone Peninsula. Now let's talk about this Keep of Skrathax just for a minute here. It's basically there's a gate in the center and there's concentric rings around the outside of it. In between those rings are moats of magma. This is like near a volcano or built on top of one. So you can imagine this is actually fairly well defended because you could just guard the bridges essentially between these moats. Khorne's power exudes all over this place and it emanates with darkness from each of the keep walls to the point where Sigmar can't actually shoot his lightning into the keep itself, so he can't really do his whole fire the Stormcast Eternals directly into the battlefield strategy. Last little thing to notice is that each of these keeps had sort of a mini fortification in it. So here's the plan. The Stormcast Eternals are going to land nearby, and they're going to send scouts, a whole fleet of prosecutors out there. These are the flying soldiers with wings, to go and first of all scout out, look for weaknesses, what part of the circles surrounding the fort are the less guarded ones that we can attack and actually get some footholds in. And their second objective is to kill leadership. These guys have identified that Khorne Bloodbound and really demons of all kinds really thrive on having a strong personality to lead them. So if you eliminate leaders, the rest of them fall pretty easily. And as such, the scouts fly in, they're pecking away at the Khorne Bloodbound, and they notice something, that in the center ring where the actual Brimfire Gate is, they notice something that shocks them, which is Skarbrand himself is back, pulled out of that mountain avalanche from the last book by Khorne himself and thrown here as a punishment. He's chained to the gate to defend it. Archaon's happy that he's chained here, this way he's not rampaging around destroying Archaon's forces, picking fights he can't win and slaughtering a whole bunch of his own people. But both agree that he makes a fantastic guard dog when it comes to securing the Brimfire Gate. And a new plan arises. All the scouts that were in there flying around, the prosecutors, they then begin to shoot the chains that hold Skarbrand, which sounds ridiculous, but wait for it. They break the chains that hold Skarbrand to the gate, and he, as it is pure engine of destruction that has no real mind and barely any sentience, goes ballistic. Remember, he kills everything, friend and foe. And so what they've essentially done is they haven't actually invaded the fortress yet. None of the ground troops are marching on it, but they've unleashed Skarbrand to kill everything inside of it immediately. This means if you are defending this fort, trying to keep everything outside the walls, now you have something terrible inside the walls too. It puts you in between a rock and a hard place if you're, say, any one of the Blood Warriors or anything like that in this fortification. There are scary things on both sides of the walls, and it also functions as a fantastic distraction. Now people who are guarding the walls and are going to be firing and shooting at the Stormcast Eternals are facing backwards to see what Scarbrand's doing. And with this, the Stormcast Eternals make their way into the initial fort. They go ring by ring, fort by fort, with Fire Slayers pouring into the fight as sort of a second wave. And this whole time they're fighting, you have to remember that Chaos Forces, specifically those of Khorne, are pouring in from the Brimfire Gate, from that reserve army that was sitting at the All Points that we talked about before. And in addition to them, something else stirs on the battlefield, and these rings of molten lava begin to make huge waves and move around, and we know what's coming because Ignax, God Beast, from yesterday's video, uncoils, and we've learned that these magma pits weren't really moats, they were more just his actual body just wrapped around this fortress. And the book says that he moves his head, breathes back just like Argentine did, but he doesn't get stopped by Dracothian and breathes out this gout of flame that, and I quote, kills thousands instantly. This is an unwieldy weapon, and he is just destroying friend and foe alike. And as I said, thousands die instantly as the power of a sun washes over the battlefield. And while everyone is kind of shocked and awed by what's going on, there is one person specifically who sees an opportunity, and that is the Rune Father of the Fire Slayers contingent there. He sees the rune of binding that was put on by the other Fire Slayer Lodge in yesterday's video, the one that the Rune Father slapped it on him and then it was instantly evaporated because Ignax was too powerful at that point. Well, here's the thing, all this travel, all this fire, this energy has weakened him, so now he can see the rune of binding and Ignax is not at full power, emitting that much heat. So he's like, oh, I can get to that rune and I can do this. I can control him now because I won't burn up near him. So he starts making his way as close as he can to Ignax. Meanwhile, the Stormcast Eternals are pushing as deep as they can into the fort, and they're meeting a ton of resistance, wave after wave after wave. Eventually, the Fire Slayer Runefather makes it to Ignax, the closest point he can get to him. And as I said, the reason he's not vaporized is because Ignax is now tired and worn out. He doesn't emit as much heat and energy as he did before. And because he's at a weak point, the Rune of Binding works, and the Fire Slayer Runefather is able to control, just for a moment, the power of this god beast. And it's not without cost, because they're looking at this Runefather and he starts aging decades in seconds by controlling this thing. By taking the mantle and controlling this thing, it takes so much energy and life force out of him that he honestly begins to age centuries by the time he's done. However, while he's sort of quote-unquote driving this beast and controlling him and binding him, he gets his life's worth because he points the head of Ignax at the enemy armies and lets loose that same gout of energy. And not only does it destroy a ton of Khorne forces, but it also obliterates the defenses along these concentric rings, making a straight and narrow path for the Stormcast to march directly towards the Brimfire Gate. The Runefather then, with his last bit of life force used to control the god beast, dies right away, and Ignax, who now has given out 2 massive blasts, a lot of travel, a lot of energy spent when these god beasts are used to sleeping and slumbering, coils and runs away. And this brings us to the last big fight of the Realmgate Wars, and it's in this courtyard right in front of the gate. Waves of demons, Stormcast Eternals, Fire Slayers, all going toe to toe. And again, this is another one of those fights, if you're a Blades of Khorne player, you're gonna love this. Because Scarbrand is going nuts the whole time, hacking and slashing. And entering the courtyard, Vandus Hammerhand looks and sees what's happening and realizes, I'm tired of this. And so he says a little prayer to Sigmar, his hammer begins to glow white, and he charges on his Dracoth, full speed straight at Scarbrand, jumps up, and delivers a killing blow right into Scarbrand's head. And this knocks a rent into the demon. He smashes back, there's holes in him, he's just a mess, and with that, the Stormcast Eternals then swarm him, finish him off, take the gate, lock it, and with that, they have secured the Brimfire Gate from the hands of Khorne. There's obviously still evil forces in the realm, but this is a huge deal when it comes to the flood of chaos coming into the realms. Okay, so final tally time. We have 2 gates that were won by the forces of order, and that's life and fire. We have 2 gates that were won by the chaos forces, meaning they just repelled the order attacks. That's metal and death. We have 2 gates that we have no idea who controls them, that's light and shadow, and one of them that nobody owns, that is beasts in the realm of Gur. So in closing with the Realmgate War series, let's talk about why this whole thing matters. In essence, this sets the stage for the entire Age of Sigmar narrative. If you are just coming along with Soul Wars and things like that, this is important because it sets the stage for everything that you know now and going forward. Fire and Life become massive Order settlements. The biggest city of Order is called Hammerhall, and it actually exists in both of those realms, half as Garan, half as Anaxi. This also drastically reduces the effects of chaos in those realms. They've been hurt, they've been dealt a huge blow. Specifically, Nurgle, because he got kicked out of Life, and Khorne, who largely got kicked out of, actually at least, their respective parts of it. There's still a lot of those forces in the realms, but I'm talking about their continuous stream of reinforcements. However, important to note, that one of the gods was not kicked out of the realm that they so desperately seek, and that is Tzeentch was not kicked out of the realm of metal, which plays perfectly well into the fact that right after these books came out, the Tzeentch release happened and Disciples of Tzeentch book came to us as players. Again, this series set up a reason for him to be ascending as a chaos god. In addition to the lore reasons for giving us why people are the way they are, what the Chaos Gods are doing, Tzeentch is in ascendancy right now. We also see a few things that the Pantheon is being rebuilt. Sigmar has reunited with Alarielle, who has been reborn in her war aspect. He's also tried to reach out to Nagash, but to no avail. And more importantly, Order, like capital O Order, as a faction has been established in this book. It's everyone who hates chaos. So far we've seen Stormcast, Fireslayer, Sylvaneth, and a few bits of Devoted of Sigmar and Seraphon in various places. What that means is that these armies now all have a single banner to bind them and places to seek refuge now that certain areas are being secured. What's also happened in this narrative is that Nagash has solidified himself as a major player. He's not going to be a part of the Pantheon, he's going to do things himself, which directly sets him up for success in Soul Wars, which comes out soon. And just like Nagash, the forces of destruction have said no more. No more control, no more subjugation. Gordrak, Fist of Gork is here, and he's going to tear everything down. So kind of stepping back to a bird's eye view, the players have been set, meaning the 4 grand alliances, and so has the board, meaning where everyone lands on it. Order has some cities, Chaos still has a lot, I would say most of things, but Death and Destruction are now major players and have to be addressed. And while this story arc is mostly about Order versus Chaos, it's pretty easy to see, Soul Wars is coming out that really follows the rise of Death as a faction and takes Nagash from being some kind of isolationist loner to really giving us a reason why, no, he's a huge player, and the Pantheon has to be wary of him. And we are going to be diving into that soon, friends, because the Realmgate Wars have set the stage for his re-entry into the mortal realms. So thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed this week. I have enjoyed making it, put a lot of work into it, and I think that has really paid off. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you, and happy wargaming.